which way, depending on which way you lean, I guess, it still creates uncertainty.
Well, it does create, I think, an attitude that something out there might interrupt your personal plan. You're a young person with a good job, thriving professional, but you're afraid, and fear is at the base of that there's something on the outside of what you know and how you behave every day that might interrupt your plan. And I think that the perception of how well things are going is certainly an important element on anyone's decision to make a big-ticket purchase. And, of course, real estate is that, a big-ticket purchase.
It is. It's, as we said, it's some of the biggest ones you have. Now, the government affairs and the issues, a lot of people with government and the laws, a lot of it comes down to, what's going to grow, right? Are we going to have these huge, I know, so from where I'm at, in downtown Kirkland, there's this building called the Portola that everybody's up in arms about because it's like 120 units on an acre. It's some silly number. But there's a lot of this that you had talked about before the show that is kind of preordained through the Growth Management Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, here in King County particularly, there is no magic bullet with growth. Growth was determined in the 1980s by way of the Growth Management Act, and that one piece of legislation dictated how much growth was going to be anticipated here in the county for 20, 30 years, what cities were going to take the growth based on infrastructure, location, available land mass. And that growth has to be mandated through the Growth Management Act. So cities don't have an option, and development is coming where it's supposed to, really based on that grand plan.
And so this kind of these plans are in place already as it relates to where things are going to grow. And as you look into Seattle and you look at the lack of inventory that we've covered many times on our show, you look in the core, there's not really anywhere to grow. So there's some areas that you think that are going to grow, that are going to absorb the people, for lack of a better term?
Well, they have to go somewhere. And, we are extremely fortunate in this area to be blessed by a good balance of economic strengths. And, the people are going to come. And although sometimes you can take on the mentality when you already live somewhere that we're big enough, that we don't need any more growth. We don't want to manage the traffic on I-90 that was mentioned earlier in the show. But with growth comes a lot of opportunities. It comes in improved infrastructure, more opportunities for clean water and clean air. It brings vibrancy into the school systems. It brings improved road structures eventually. And it brings a whole new, different demographic.
Keyword eventually.
Whole new, different demographic of people that add vitality and life to communities. It shouldn't be overlooked.
So when you start thinking about all these different people who are coming here, and you start thinking about how, you see it as improving the overall landscape of the city.
Well, I think that anything that's not growing dies. And, we're all concerned about...
Look at Detroit.
Absolutely. We're all concerned about Seattle staying a vibrant and wonderful place to live. And indeed, we've seen lots of growth in Seattle, downtown Bellevue, and in the suburbs where I primarily work. We will grumble and gripe and contest things as part of the process. But at the end of the day, the improvements that have been made have been well managed, have been to most of our benefit, and have brought a new level of service and or opportunities for recreation and employment that we never really thought of.
So the growth is coming. Nobody's going to stop it. People want Amazon to do well. People want all the local companies to do well. With that comes growth. What do you think the perception of the 2012 election will have on all of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, we're looking at the economy and the state of the economy and whether things are going to improve or stay stagnant. But here's the thing. If a developer is coming to build something, that's generally a pro-economic move. And I think that if we can bolster and sustain the real estate new construction, we will definitely fight our way out of this recessionary lull a lot sooner. So, being pro-growth, does have a good economic upside. I think that we will all enjoy in the long run.
Well, maybe enough people to even support a good old another basketball team and a hockey team. That's what I'm rooting for. But, hey, that's a whole nother topic. What about the perceptions of the people who maybe want to, get a bigger home that's kind of the first time home buyers seem to be moving up to the next, that level or buying a house. And then you kind of get this domino effect. It seems to me that, at least coming from the mortgage perspective, first time home buyers are a little bit more dreamy. Hey, I'm going to buy a house. And they're not always thinking, well, gee, what's the election going to do to the housing market? Whereas people who maybe are moving up or even downsizing and have maybe lost some of their equity, they've lost some of their 401k, they've lost some of their retirement over the past few years, start to maybe have a little bit more understanding of the outside pressures that can have impacts on their decisions. How do you see that kind of coming about?
Well, I think that the discretionary home buyer, who is the second and third and fourth move-up buyer, is really the underserved and underappreciated part of the market right now. There are people that are doing well and their families are growing and they are at a place in their professional career that it would be a perfect time to invest in something that was bigger and better and that served their family in a different way. One of the real big issues we're seeing right now is we don't have a lot of inventory. And, without growth and without development, there will be no future inventory for that person to look forward to moving up to. And so if he doesn't have anything to move up to, he might move out of town. And that's, certainly something we don't want to do. So we want to serve those people who are here that have a need and that will stay local. But, we need some fresh product that's, green and innovative and that's modern to keep them here.
Yeah, it seems, that I think you hit the nail on the head when you say this discretionary home buyer, because these are people, they want their real dream home. When I wrote my book, I wrote about how, it's not for their first home is not their dream home. You buy your first home and eventually maybe you can trade that up for your dream home, and now the prices are coming up. Maybe that'll actually ring true. I was a little worried that my book might be wrong for a while there, but that's kind of the discretionary piece is it's a stepping stone when you buy your first home and then your next home, and then eventually maybe you can get into that dream home.
Absolutely. And most people are not the underwater credit stressed people. Most people who have been wise and who have been prudent and who have well planned their purchases are at a great place to be a move-up buyer right now. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the media puts a lot of attention to the underwater, undercapitalized people on the planet. But you know what? For everyday homeowners that did the right thing, that put money down, that paid their bills, you know what? Their home is more valuable than it was when they purchased it. They do have some equity. If you haven't used your home as a checkbook, that home that you bought 10 years ago is worth more money. And today, with interest rates that are just phenomenally great, there are some great opportunities either to turn that home into a rental, to treat yourself to something better, or to build some personal wealth that will serve you well in your retirement.
Do you see the perception of, you talked a little bit about finding that right house, potentially giving you money in your retirement, people who have been responsible paying their bills. What is your thoughts on, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, what are your thoughts on the perception of finding a good professional to work with to help you accomplish some of those goals? Because you have the experience and you have people who've been in the industry a long time. The last few years have definitely cleaned house on a lot, and now you're going to start seeing more people come into the market. What are some of those questions, or what should people be asking before they go make these decisions on who to hire?
Well, first and foremost, I would say pick an agent that's full-time. Any of us that have a part-time job generally have a part-time focus. And a full-time agent, especially one that has weathered the storm, and by that I mean been in the business 10 years or longer, that they have had to be incredibly proactive and creative. They have had to keep their knowledge base high just to manage in this business. And certainly I'd look for a professional company, and I'd look for somebody who has a resume with 10 or more years in this business at a minimum that has given it full-time attention, they're probably the best asset that you can choose.
We're here with Pam Mccain, John L. Scott, Real Estate. Pam, just a couple minutes before we go to break. The other thing with a full-time person, somebody who's been through it, you had brought up this perception of a good deal. And I want to hear your take on what a good deal is before I jump into my rant.
Well, I have a real big opinion on what a good deal is. And, certainly we see bank-owned properties and short sales and all that on the market. A good deal is only, a good buy, I should say, is only one that can be bought. And boy, oh boy, have we seen a lot of homes with a lot of problems. In the current real estate resale market, sellers have to fill out a disclosure. There's all sorts of information they have to provide by law. And, it's really a sight unseen when you're talking about a bank-owned home or a short sale. And really, I'm glad that the public attention to short sales is diminishing some because, a short sale's only a good buy if you can buy it. And if you can buy it for the price that you think you can buy it for. And a lot of times with those, that's certainly not the case.
Well, and so my big thing on a good deal is, that's what I want a good deal. What's going on with the market? I want a good deal on everything. And, you talk about it's only a good deal if you can get it. It's also only a good deal if it makes sense for you. If you have a family of 3 or 4 or 5, a couple kids, whatever it may be, and it's a good deal on a 1-bedroom condo, but it's a really good deal, guess what? It's probably not a good deal for you. So there's a lot of self-assessment that has to go into determining what a good deal is because, unfortunately, we're not all in the exact same place that we all can just go, hey, that's a good deal, I'll buy it. Most of us have personal things, personal items, a life, a family going on, and that is such a big piece of it. And I know when we pre-approve people, when we talk with our clients, when we talk to other real estate agents, that I just want a good deal that comes out sometimes of clients' mouths. And it's not a bad thing. People want a good deal, but when an agent or a mortgage broker or anybody doesn't actually take the time to understand what that good deal is to them or for them, then there's really this huge disconnect because a good deal can mean so many different things.
Absolutely, you're right. And a good deal is one that only one fits your needs, and a good realtor can help you ascertain one from the other. And a good realtor can help you see into the future a little bit and to show you how much flexibility and how much of a good investment that property can be if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah, well, thank you, Pam, for joining us. Really do appreciate it because, hey, there is a lot of good deals out there, but you got to make sure they make sense. And with the upcoming election, you better have some understanding of what that could mean to you, too. We have to go to break. When we come back, we're going to continue the real estate conversation. I'm Ben Brashen. You're listening to Brashenomics at 1150 AM, KKNW.